It was a dirty, forgotten Petri dish, left abandoned on a laboratory bench over a summer holiday, contaminated and seemingly ruined. Most scientists would have thrown it away without a second thought. But one man looked closer, and what he saw in that moment of accidental neglect would go on to save more human lives than almost any discovery in the entire history of medicine. This is the story of penicillin, the world's first true antibiotic. Born not from years of careful research, not from brilliant planning, but from a single moment of extraordinary curiosity in front of a dirty Petri dish. This video is educational only and not a substitute for professional medical advice. By understanding this remarkable story, we hope to deepen your appreciation for the medicines that silently protect millions of lives every single day.
Now, let's travel back in time and understand the world before penicillin existed.
To truly understand how extraordinary this discovery was, we first need to understand the world before it existed. Before penicillin, a simple scratch could kill you. A small cut on your finger, an infected tooth, a minor wound from a farming accident, any of these could spiral into a deadly infection within days. Bacterial infections were among the leading causes of death worldwide. Hospitals were places people went to die, not to be saved. Soldiers wounded in battle survived their injuries only to die days later from infected wounds. Mothers died of infections after childbirth. Children died from scarlet fever and pneumonia before they ever had a chance to grow up. The world was largely defenseless against bacteria, and humanity desperately needed a weapon.
Next, let's talk about the man behind this extraordinary discovery. His name was Alexander Fleming. Born in 1881 in a small Scottish farming village, Fleming was a quiet, meticulous, and deeply curious scientist. He had served as a battlefield doctor during World War I, watching helplessly as soldiers died, not from bullets, but from infected wounds. That experience never left him. When he returned to his laboratory at St. Mary's Hospital in London after the war, he made it his personal mission to find something, anything that could fight bacterial infection. For years, he searched. He was known among colleagues as a careful but somewhat untidy scientist. His laboratory bench was often cluttered, experiments left running longer than they should, Petri dishes stacked and forgotten. Most of his colleagues saw this as a flaw, but as history would reveal, that untidiness, that beautiful, accidental disorder, was about to change the world forever.
Now, let's go back to that September morning in 1928, the moment that changed everything. It was September 1928. Fleming had been away from his laboratory for the entire summer holiday. When he returned, he began sorting through the Petri dishes he had left behind, dishes that had been growing cultures of Staphylococcus bacteria, one of the most dangerous infection-causing bacteria known at the time. He picked up one dish and stopped. Something was wrong. Or rather, something was extraordinarily right. A patch of blue-green mold had contaminated the dish during his absence. This was not unusual. Mold contamination happened regularly in laboratories. But what was unusual was what surrounded the mold, a clear ring of empty space. The bacteria were dead. Something the mold was producing had dissolved the deadly Staphylococcus colonies around it completely.
Fleming stared at that clear ring for a long moment, then quietly, with the measured excitement of a truly great scientist, he said the words that would echo through medical history forever. "That's funny."
Next, let's talk about what Fleming found and what he did with it. Fleming immediately recognized the significance of what he was seeing. He carefully preserved the contaminated dish and began investigating the mold. He identified it as Penicillium notatum, a common environmental mold that drifts through the air almost everywhere on Earth. But this common, unremarkable mold was producing something remarkable, a substance that actively killed bacteria. Fleming began growing the mold in liquid broth and extracting what he called the mold juice. He tested it against a wide range of dangerous bacteria, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, and many others responsible for deadly human infections. The results were extraordinary. Time and time again, the mold juice killed the bacteria completely. He named the active substance penicillin, after the Penicillium mold that produced it. Fleming published his findings in 1929. He was certain he had found something important, but what happened next would delay penicillin reaching the world by over a decade.
Now, despite this incredible discovery, the story takes a difficult turn.
Fleming's published paper was largely ignored. The scientific community showed little interest. The technology to extract and purify penicillin in large enough quantities simply did not exist yet. For over 10 years, penicillin sat quietly in scientific literature. Discovered, but unused. A weapon against bacterial infection that the world desperately needed, gathering dust on the pages of a journal almost nobody read. Then came World War II. As casualties mounted and infected wounds once again began claiming more lives than the fighting itself, a team of scientists at Oxford University, led by Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain, revisited Fleming's forgotten paper. They were determined to do what Fleming could not. They would find a way to purify penicillin, mass produce it, and get it into the hands of doctors and soldiers who needed it most. The race to save the world had finally begun. Next, let's talk about the race that finally brought penicillin to the world. Florey and Chain's team worked with extraordinary urgency. By 1941, they had purified enough penicillin to conduct the first human trial. The patient was a policeman named Albert Alexander, dying from a severe bacterial infection that had spread across his entire face and body after a simple scratch from a rose thorn. Within 24 hours of receiving penicillin, he began to recover. The medical team watching could barely believe what they were seeing. The tragedy struck. The team ran out of penicillin before the treatment was complete. They even tried extracting penicillin from Alexander's own urine to reuse it. It was not enough. Albert Alexander died. But the trial had proven beyond any doubt that penicillin worked. Florey traveled to the United States, carrying penicillin mold samples hidden inside his coat, and convinced American pharmaceutical companies to begin mass production. By 1944, penicillin was being produced by the millions of doses, in time for D-Day, in time for the war's final battles, in time to save millions. Finally, let's talk about the extraordinary legacy of this accidental discovery. In 1945, Alexander Fleming, Howard Florey, and Ernst Boris Chain were jointly awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Fleming became one of the most celebrated scientists in human history. But in his Nobel acceptance speech, Fleming delivered a quiet and chilling warning to the world.
He warned that if penicillin was misused, if people took too little or used it carelessly, bacteria would learn to resist it. Antibiotic resistance, he said, was a danger the world must take seriously. That warning, spoken in 1945, is one of the most urgent global health crises of our time today. Penicillin and its descendants have saved an estimated 200 million lives since their discovery. Infections that once killed within days are now treated with a simple course of tablets, all because a scientist went on holiday, left a Petri dish behind, and came back, curious enough to ask, "That's funny." This video is educational only. Always consult a licensed healthcare professional for medical advice.